Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Alex from Alex Bailey Photos, and today I'm going to take you guys into my editing process, show you a little bit about my retouching, show you my coloring. Today's going to be kind of a long one, but I'll make it quick as possible and as interesting as possible as well. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Alright, check it out. Here we go.
Alright guys, so here I am in Capture One. This is the image that we'll be working with today. I usually like to start by kind of checking white balance and seeing how it'll look to get different styles. But right off the bat, I'll start by making sure that it's properly white balanced. And honestly, this looks pretty good. But just to double check, I'll grab here in this it's like 3 overlapping circles. You click on this and it brings up this menu. So I'll go into white balance section and I'll click on that little eyedropper. And for example, I'll take the whites of her eyes. And you can see what that did. I didn't really like it. It's a little too stylistic just to start. So what I'll do, I'll leave it as is. I kind of like it, like I said, and it looks pretty good. So we get started. From here, I'll go over into this little graph looking tab, which is for exposure. Exposure looks pretty good all around. You can kind of play with the highlights, recovery, and the shadow recovery as well in the high dynamic range section. You see that it doesn't really do much. Like everything is pretty much exposed properly, so there wasn't any highlights or anything clipping. So there's really no need for that. I like to boost the clarity just a little bit, just to give it a little sharpness to it. A little goes a long way, so there's really no need to overkill here. I'll bump up the structure, maybe like 1 or 2 as well, just to kind of give the image a real nice, sharp, tactile feel to it. From there, everything else looks pretty good. So at this point, I'm getting ready to take it into Photoshop. So I'll come right over here to the actual thumbnail. I'll right click it and you go to Edit With, and then Photoshop CC 2019. You make sure all this stuff is really pretty much generic stuff. PSD file, 16-bit. That's the color space that it's working in. 300 resolution. This is pretty much perfect. 300 resolution just basically means that if you're going to print it, or a large banner, for example, that it keeps that same tack sharp quality and doesn't get all pixelated as you blow it up. And I like to keep my pictures as high quality as possible, and then scale down or crop later on if need be. So we can click on Edit Variants. What it essentially does, and it will populate in a little bit, it's going to create a copy of all the adjustments that I just made in Capture One, and open that as a PSD file in Photoshop. Ignore that, this is another image I was working on. So here we are in Photoshop. The first thing I'd like to do is start by kind of getting rid of some of these blemishes, cleaning up this wall just a little bit. I like the plant, but there's just not enough of it to make it worth keeping. So I'll get rid of that as well. So start by creating a new layer. And then we'll go to, I'll hit S on my keyboard for the clone stamp tool. And I want to make sure that the sample says current, set to current and below, so that way it'll affect the layer that I'm on based on the layer that's below it, which is I'm on the new layer that we created, and it's going to affect this layer based on this background layer, which is the actual image. So I'm using a Wacom tablet, so my clicks may be a little more precise or whatever the case may be. I'm going to get in there and really start fine-tuning just a little bit. Make the brush a little bit smaller, and essentially hold on Option on the keyboard, and you'll sample one area here and draw it over this area that you want to affect. So I'll select this area, which is very close in color and texture to this blemish, and come right over the blemish and draw right over it. You can see that it's kind of created like this discoloring around it, and I don't really like that. So if that doesn't work, or it gets a little too tedious for you, there's other ways. There's a million and one ways to get rid of blemishes and to edit in Photoshop. This is just one of them. You just keep on sampling. I feel pretty good about her face. Let's clean up this wall. Same process. Just don't like these chips in the wall. Maybe if there was a little bit more of it to make it look intentional, kind of like a textured thing or a style, then that'd be cool, but I don't care for it. Same thing with these leaves. They look really good. I might add them back later on, to be honest with you. I'll leave them for now. We've got time, we've got space to work with, so. Wall looks much better to me. I'm going to keep it natural as possible. At this point, I'm going to flatten down my layers. So right click on the top layer and just going to flatten image. That compresses all your layers back down into one, so now you're back working with a clean layer, and all your settings have pretty much been, or all your layers have pretty much been condensed into one. So it is destructive, but I'm okay with that based on the steps that I usually, my workflow. So I'm okay with compressing at this point in time. There's nothing else I need from that previous layer, so there's that. At this point in time, I'm going to run an action that I actually got from Dani Diamond's tutorial. It's actually really good. This is exactly what I was doing anyways, kind of my process, streamlined, and he already made it into an action. So I'm just going to run that action real quick, and it'll bring up all the different layers that I kind of work with. My computer's a little slow, please bear with me. Alright, so all these layers get created. Great. This is frequency separation. If you haven't heard of it before, there are a ton of tutorials on the internet about it. Feel free to comment below if you'd like to see me create an actual tutorial on that. But after all the resources are out there, you'll see what it is. There's a low layer that contains all of the colors from your image, and the high layer contains all the textures from your image. Now I do this a little different from other people, and again, it's not a right way or a wrong way, just really however you feel most comfortable doing it, and whatever gets the results that you are looking to get. So I'll start with the low layer, the color layer, and adjust those first. I'll start by going to the mixer brush, which is over here. Mixer brush, boom. My settings are all set relatively low, so it'll make some changes, but very gradually. So I don't want anything drastic. That's how I keep things looking very natural and light. I try not to overdo it. So right about here, I don't like this transition from a light, where the light hit her cheek, into where it didn't really hit as much. And it just looks like it's going from dark to light really sharply with this line here. So I'm going to clear a bit of that up by blending the two colors together to get rid of that line. And I'm going to just make sure that okay, definitely not doing what I wanted to do. Hang on. Oh, I'm going to turn off sample all layers. Sorry. Don't want to sample all the layers on this one, just this layer that I'm working with. And I'll start blending in this part here. It looks a little more natural. So I'm going to undo because I don't like how it turned out. I'm going to give this a bigger brush and work in here side to side this time. And boom, that line is drastically reduced. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of her cheek how I normally would. Just kind of blending in the areas, transitions from light to dark. Smoothing out some of the skin at the same time. I'm going a little heavy and drastic, and I'll show you why in a little bit. It's kind of shaping the face, giving her nice contours around the cheek, the jawline. So the makeup artist did an excellent job. Now, as a photographer, or a retoucher, it's your job to kind of go in and emphasize what's already been done. It's great when you don't have to create anything from scratch, and you kind of just play with what's already there. Play with what's already there. Yeah, to smooth out her skin a lot. There's a huge difference, and it still looks kind of pretty much natural. And that's kind of what I like to do. I like to keep it as natural as possible and not overdo it. Over processed skin is the quickest way to tell an amateur from a more professional or more seasoned photographer. Just don't do it, guys. Just don't do it. So I'm going to turn on and off this group so you can kind of see what I've done so far, before and after. So I like it. A few things I don't really care for, necessarily this harsh highlight on her cheek, but we'll fix that in a little bit. I still want to smooth this out just a little bit more, this transition here, by dragging some of this dark color up this way. Yeah, those purple lines means that my system is extremely slow right now and dragging. Alright, so once that's done, you can go into the texture layer. I am probably not going to do anything here. I like keeping the texture of the skin. I mean, you can erase the texture altogether if you want, for example. And you'll see what that does. Just gives them this weird porcelain looking thing and it gets all blurry. So we're not going to do that. Just want to show you that that's there. If there's like out of place hair, or you could actually use this layer to get rid of blemishes by using the clone stamp tool and getting rid of blemishes from here as well. But we already took care of that in the first process, or the first step that I used. So from here, I'm noticing that I might have missed a few spots, so this is a good time to show you. So back in the clone stamp tool here, I'm actually going to turn off current and below and go just current layer only, because I only want to affect the textures that are on this layer. And just a little few spots here that I kind of missed. Here, it's kind of cool because now you can pull or sample from anywhere on the face and not necessarily something in proximity or something relatively close in terms of texture or color. So I can pick from here because it's really smooth here. There's not much texture on the skin, or as much, because the light's not hitting it up there as it is down here. So I'll grab a spot right here and it'll copy this texture over this texture. And you can see what that does. I'm being drastic, of course, so you can see what's happening. I'm going to undo that. But that's essentially what it does. And I want to be a little bit more modest in my selections on these. So I'll just hit the spots that really need retouching and not necessarily a whole area. And just keep resampling wherever, once you get to new spots. And that's that. Again, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I like how that looks. If my computer would stop acting up, I can continue on with the edit. Seriously, come back! Okay, it's gone. She is not coming back. Alright, so that's that. From here, going to dodge and burn. That's my next step. So you're going to use the regular brush tool. I'm going to drop the opacity to something like 5%. And I'm going to keep it on white for right now to add in some highlights on the highlighted areas. So, I mean, there's other technical ways of doing this. Some people will convert it to black and white first so they can have a better look on the shadows and highlights. Sometimes it's necessary, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. In this case, I won't. It's pretty clear. So I'm just going to lightly brush in some additional shine in the highlighted areas already. Again, I'm not creating, I'm just adding to what's already there. A couple of strokes. Give her a little more definition on the collarbones here. We'll get this thing to pop a little bit more. Her jacket. Little neck area here. And I'll get a couple of these areas here by her hair, or in her hair. And again, this is like very subtle. So I'm going to turn this on and off so you can see. Very subtle. I don't even think you're going to notice it on your screen. But then I'm going to switch from my foreground color being white to black by hitting X on the keyboard. And I'm going to darken a few things like her eyebrows, for example. Keep these nice and dark. I'll give these a couple of strokes. Eyelash area. I'm going to give her cheek a little more of that as well to get some real definition on her cheekbone and just underneath here as well. A little on her collarbone. And a little underneath her lip. And these areas here to kind of give it some depth. Alright, I'll turn this on and off again. Should really be able to see some difference now. We've kind of shaped her face a little bit more. It kind of got her features to stand out even more. From there, I'll add a little bit of sharpening. I'll turn the brush opacity back up to 70%. Make sure we have white selected. And just brush over the pupils and eyelashes. And you can see what difference that made in her eyes. Maybe you can't see on your screen or not. Then I'll drop the opacity to 30%. And I'll sharpen everything else. Her hair, face, cheekbones, skin, the lips. So I only want the bulk of the sharpening happening on her eyes to draw more of the focus there, since, I mean, that's kind of the focal point of this model in the scene. There's a ton of other layers in here that honestly I rarely use, depending on what the need is. I'll jump into toning now and coloring. So it comes with a boost. You can give it a quick boost if you want. I don't really like it; it's a little too much. And oh, sorry. Actually, let me backtrack. One of the reasons why I was saying earlier I overdid it a little bit on frequency separation is because I know that I can go in here and turn the opacity down on it. Opacity, however you say it. And make it blend in a little bit more so it looks a little more natural. So I'll do like 85, 86%. So it doesn't look too overdone and still looks a little natural. So coloring, my favorite part. A million and one ways to color grade or color correct whatever it is you are working on. For me, I don't really use many of these, so I kind of from here I'll button this up. I'll stamp everything down, create a new layer from just that. That's keyboard shortcut Shift Option Command E if you're on a Mac, and from there I can delete that whole folder and get my files working a little bit smaller again. So this is what we've done so far. This is the current after, and this is the before. Very subtle, which is the way I like it. So for color grading, I'll start with selective color, which I can never remember what this logo looks like. So it's this one here in the adjustment panel. And I'll usually start with blacks, which represents the shadows. Neutral represents the midtones, and whites represent the highlights. Or you can go in here and manipulate the specific colors that you want to work with. So I'll start with the shadows. Right off the bat, I like, let me see. We can crank the shadows up, and you see what that does, give it more of a faded look, or we can really crush those blacks and make them really dark. Obviously not what I'm going for, so I'm going to leave the shadow luminosity, intensity right where it is. I think it's perfect. I might add a little blue into the shadow to give it more of a cinematic look, which I like that. And then maybe even a little cyan as well. Nothing too heavy. It's real light. It's real subtle. This is before, this is after. Like a little goes a long way with this. It's a little too blue, so I'm going to cut back on that. And right there. This is before, after. I love it. It already looks pretty cinematic, and it goes with the tone and the feel that we're going for with this particular shoot. So let's jump over to the midtones. I may not do too much here, and I'll show you why in a little bit. This really affects more of the skin tones. So again, if you want to brighten or darken, you can do that with intensity here. I'm going to darken just a little bit, like very slightly. And that's it. I'm not going to mess with the skin tones. You can see what it does there by adding these different colors into it. But I don't want to mess with that too much, and I'll show you why in just a second. Then we're going to the whites for the highlights. Again, you can darken, brighten You can see what that's doing. I don't really want to play with these in this particular instance. I think that they are fine just the way they are. They're nice and white to reflect what the light color was, so no need to correct that. I'm going to start playing with the skin tones now. For that, I'm going to create a adjustment layer for gradient map. And you can see what that does. We're going to change the blending mode to soft light. And now we're starting to get more of a look here. We'll click on this, and Photoshop has a ton of color palettes for skin tones that you can add. So you'll hit load here, for example, and it'll bring up a menu. Oops, sorry. That's not what I meant to hit. You'll hit the gear icon, sorry. You hit the gear icon here, and there's color harmonies 1, 2, photographic toning, all that jazz. There's a ton in here you can play with. We're looking for photographic toning. You click on that, and the option comes up, and you can hit append, which means to add it into what you already have here. So I've already got mine loaded here. So there are a ton of different options here, from here, I think it is, all the way down to this one is the last one. So I'm going to pick something close to her skin tone that's going to complement it. It's going to give her a nice, bright, vibrant feel. And obviously they look crazy right now, but we're going to turn the opacity down on the layer once we pick something that's in the ballpark of what we're looking for. So I'm going to go with something like this. It's nice and vibrant. And I'm just going to turn the opacity down to something like 23%, for example. I'll turn it on and off, and you can see what it does to the whole image. Now it's a little too strong for me still, so I'm going to cut this down just a little bit, down to 15%. And you see it affects the whole image. I'm turning it on and off right now. I don't know if you can tell or not, but I'm turning it on and off. Now you can get really dialed in and mask out all the other areas that you don't want in order to only affect the skin tones. For me personally, this is fine. I like how this looks. I'm not going to go anywhere else with that. And from here, at this point, honestly, I feel pretty happy about how this turned out. I think I'm going to leave it as is. Deliver this to the client. She's already gotten a ton of work from me already with this particular color grade and workflow. So there's not much else to do. From here, you'll just hit Command S, or Control S, I guess it is on Windows. Not really a PC user. Not yet, at least. And that's it. It'll save and send you right back over to Capture One. Done saving. We're going to switch back to Capture One. Here we are in Capture One. You can see created a second PSD file for the one that I was originally working on. 3160 is the file, the raw file, and here's the Sony, or the PSD file for it. So this is the before, this is the after. And that's really it, guys. From here, you can send to your client. Done deal.
I know I didn't go into a lot of details on certain parts, but if you have any questions, just feel free to leave a comment, like I said earlier, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Any parts that may have been confusing or something you just need a little bit more explanation about, just let me know. All right, guys, take it easy. See you in the next one.